On behalf of the National Association of Microfinance Banks in Nigeria, we want to use this opportunity to appreciate this opportunity for us to have this session. It has been quite a while that we have been interacting with Mr. Jesus Sharif in respect of this particular topic, enhancing the activities of AML CFT in Nigeria. We have been discussing with them for quite a while, and today we want to see how we practicalize some of the discussions that we have been having. On that note, we want to sincerely appreciate all my colleagues who have joined us for this program. We want to advise ourselves very strongly that we need to concentrate and take the necessary step that will enhance us in meeting up and complying with the requirement concerning the AML CTF as expected of a microfinance bank. We also want to use this opportunity to appreciate Mr. Gia, who has been working very closely with this arrangement to ensure that our MFBs comply with the expected reporting requirements. We sincerely appreciate you. I remember at intervals, we have been meeting up, trying to see how we come up with this program. Of a note, for us as a microfinance subsector, it is the desire that we really meet up the requirements so that our subsector will be a place for financial transaction. We also want to use this opportunity to appreciate the executive members of the National Association of Microfinance Banks. When we were having this discussion, at that interval, we are relating it to the management, requesting that we need to collaborate with ARMC so that we see how we carry out this application to our members. For us, it is an emerging sector where we can use technology to meet up the reporting requirement for AMLTC. My colleague Eddie has been working very closely with them to ensure that we get it right in this regard. So he will also be discussing the role that NAMB is being played, how to make our members meet up with the requirements. And I think in the course of our interaction, we will also expect that NFIU will also give us some insight of the collaboration that we can do more to ensure that we make the microfinance subsector a safe place for banking at the bottom of the pyramid. Once more, we want to sincerely use this opportunity, again, as I said, to appreciate this arrangement. For us, it is a vision that we want to see that the MFBs are operating healthily and operating at the required standard, so that anybody that is operating with the microfinance will also have the belief that it's a safe sector. I also want to quickly tell us that NFIU just had a discussion with us that some of the MFBs are not really complying with the reporting requirements. So with this interaction, I think we will go further to ensure that our members comply with it. And I can assure you that at the end of it all, we at the subsector will be able to meet up our own part of the requirements. So we want to assure Mr. Gia that you will keep on mentoring the MFBs so that we now come out as a better sector that will meet up the requirement. Once more, I want to appreciate it. Before I forget, I think our national president is also on this call. We also want to acknowledge him and other key principal officers of the NAMB and our operators.
That's excellent, Mr. Shakir Kele, Executive Secretary of the National Association of Microfinance Banks. Okay, we're going to swiftly move on to the first of our speakers. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm really pleased to be able to ask Mr. Mohammed Gia, the Head of Finance and Planning at the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit. And I also will just say that Mr. Jia is a passionate technologist and very much believes in the use of technology in fighting the challenges of AML, CFT, risk management across the continent. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'll hand you over to Mr. Mohammed Jia from the NFIU.
Yeah. So thank you very much. I'm going to speak about the general topic, but with perspective of NFIU. So my name, as I was rightly introduced, is Mohammed Jia, the Associate Director, Analysis and Compliance Directorate. And recently I was also appointed as Vice Chair, Information Exchange Working Group of Egmont Group of Financial Intelligence Unit. We have 167 member countries in the Egmont Group. We will just quickly, within the short time, talk about overview of money laundering and terrorism financing, because we always have to create a background on what we do, what is suspected, before we even go into talk about the anti-money laundering. Then we'll now discuss the role of FIU and the general situation we are in Nigeria with regards to AML CFT, then microfinance banks, their own position, and the importance of customer identification, transaction monitoring and reporting to reporting entities, and most especially now to the microfinance banks. Then we'll end with a conclusion. Now, generally, we are almost hearing the buzzword, money laundering. Money laundering is simply the illegal process of making large amounts of money that have been generated from criminal activities, such as corruption, drug trafficking, and other related crime, to make it to appear to have come from a legitimate source. It involves illegal process of making the ill-gotten or dirty money to make it appear legitimate. Criminals can only enjoy the proceeds of their crimes when such ill-gotten monies are laundered. You don't launder your legitimate income. So here are a list of some predicate offenses. It may be bribery and corruption, kidnap for ransom, tax crimes, fraud, human trafficking, oil bunkering, forgery and counterfeiting, environmental crimes, piracy, blackmail and extortion, sexual exploitation, smuggling, robbery and theft, cybercrime, and drug trafficking. That takes us to why do people launder money? First, people commit crimes for three reasons. Basic, either for economic purpose, or for violence, or for passion. When people make money from crime, they use it for one of these three purposes. They either invest it in another way, or in another crime, or hide it to use it later, or spend it immediately. When people got huge amounts of money from crime, one of the things they do is to conceal it in order to avoid attracting investigation by law enforcement agencies and legal authorities. Number two, they can hide it from incurring massive liability like tax and levies. So they can launder it to hide it from tax authorities, from government authorities that will put levies on those money. Or sometimes they make it look like it is legitimately earned so that they will be able to enjoy it. Now, what are the stages in money laundering? The first stage, which is the stage 0, is when the money is made from all those predicate offenses we mentioned. Then the next stage is placement. This is where the banks, the reporting entities, come into play. When the money is made from corruption, the next thing they do is to take it to a financial system and place it. After this placement, then the second stage is layering. They begin to move money from different bank to the other bank, move it from local bank to international bank, and do a lot of movements, which is what is referred to as layering. Try to distance the money from the source, because the source is dirty. Now the next stage, which is the stage 3 of the money laundering, is to now integrate it. Now they have laundered it, maybe the money has successfully been moved abroad, the person can now bring the money back to Nigeria or to the local country and now invest the money in luxury assets, in luxury items, cars, and different and real estate. Now let us leave let's now go to the twin brother, which is the terrorism financing. UN Security Council resolution, the Counterterrorism Committee notes that terrorists require money to operate because without funding, they will not be able to procure weapons, equipment, supplies, and other things they need. And Financial Action Task Force, FATF, stated that terrorism financing is the financing of terrorist acts or terrorists themselves or the terrorist organizations. By implication, terrorism financing involves solicitation, collection, provision of funds with the intention that they may be used to support terrorist activity. What are the stages? The first stage, just like we mentioned the stages in money laundering. As for the terrorism financing, the first stage is raising funds through donations, fundraising. They have to raise the fund. This can be through legitimate ways, such as donations and even people making money available through their legitimate businesses. And there are also illegitimate ways, which we have also found in Nigeria now: kidnap for ransom, extortion, drug trafficking. These are also ways that they raise funds. Now, when these funds are raised, they have to move this money from where the funds are raised to where they will actually utilize the money, which is where they will do the terror networks and the cells. This is where the financial institutions, banks like microfinance banks, comes to play. These monies have to move through the financial system. Then there are also informal ways like cash couriers and their wallets. Then the third stage of terrorism financing is the actual utilization of the funds, where they now use the fund to buy weapons, to pay for their expenses. Now, the next thing is, what are the conventional ways? Because it is good for the financial institutions to know the conventional ways and the new modes for you to be able to identify them and be able to mitigate and put in place how to combat those things. There are different ways. In terms of generation of revenue, the old way, which is the conventional way, is through private donation, abuse and misuse of NPOs, non-profit organizations, proceeds of criminal activities, extortion, local and diaspora populations and businesses, kidnapping for ransom, legitimate commercial enterprises. Now, the ways of movement of funds. Here again, we have the banks comes into play. They move money. Terrorists need to move money. Some of these monies are not even generated in Nigeria. They have to move it through the financial system to the country where they need to execute their terrorist activities. So the other ways is through money value transfer systems, where also the microfinance banks that are also operating the fintech world also come to play. Then we also have physical transportation of cash. What are the new ways that are available now? We also have the foreign terrorist fighters, where you have self-funding individuals. Then we also have fundraising through social media and crowdfunding. Then we also have true new payment products and services. So you can see the terrorists are now utilizing these platforms very well. You can recall in 2019 where there was a kidnap case in Abuja, and the ransom was paid through using the Bitcoin. The kidnappers require the payment of ransom to be paid in Bitcoin, and $15,000 equivalent of Bitcoin was paid before the release of the lady. Then also there is also exploitation of natural resources. There have been a research which have clearly stated that there is a link between wherever there is illegal mining of resources and terrorism financing. Then, what are the regulatory frameworks available to counter this financing of terrorism? We have the 40 recommendation of Financial Action Task Force. Most especially, if you look at the recommendation 9 to 16, which talks that the financial institutions must identify their customers, they must do customer due diligence. And also recommendation 20, which talks that financial institutions must report suspicious transactions to financial intelligence units. Then we have the Money Laundering Prohibition Act, which also gives details of what is expected of financial institutions. Most especially, Section 2 talks about the reporting of any foreign currency transaction equivalent of $10,000 US. Section 3 talks about financial institutions should identify their customers. Then Section 6 talks about the need for financial institutions to apply surveillance to accounts in order to report suspicious transactions and suspicious activities of their customers within their own system. Then Section 10 requires the banks, the reporting entities, to also submit currency-based, threshold-based, 5 million in Nigeria. In the case in Nigeria, 5 million for individual, 10 million for corporate bodies. Section 19 talks about record keeping, and there are also penalties. Then we have the Terrorism Prevention Act. Section 10 also talks about reporting. Then we have CBN AML CFT regulations, which started from 2009. We have the 2009, 2011, 2013, 20 up to 2018. I think we also have the most latest one. Then we have the NFIU Act. The NFIU Act, specifically Section 3 and 4. Section 3 talks about the functions, the mandates, which allow us to be collecting reports, and Section 4 talks about the power of NFIU. Section 15 also talks about all the other things that then we have other regulations as well. Then now let's go back to the role of FIU in anti-money laundering. FIU is a central body that is established by law to collect reports from reporting entities, be it financial institutions or designated named financial businesses and professions or others. We analyze this report, and if we found that there is any reason for suspicion, we now disseminate it to law enforcement agencies or anti-corruption agencies or to regulatory authorities. NFIU at the moment is autonomous, and we used to be part of EFCC, but now autonomous. We are the secretariats of interministerial committee on AML CFT in the country. We are the secretariat of National Sanction Committee. We are also the headquarters of West African FIU Forum, and we are at the moment mentoring 3 other FIUs in the West African sub-region to join the Egmont group of FIUs, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and the Gambia. We are the NFIU Act mandates us to strengthen the existing system and also to identify risk of money laundering, terrorism financing, and advise relevant authorities to apply targeted enhanced measures to mitigate inherent and residual AML and proliferation financing risks. We receive reports from reporting entities, and we analyze these reports, come up with intelligence, and which we disseminate immediately to law enforcement agencies once we are able to establish that there is an unlawful activity has taken place. We advise the supervisory authorities and also even the reporting authorities on ways and appropriate ways to combat money laundering, terrorism financing. We exchange information with law enforcement agencies, our counterpart FIUs, and we also advise the government. Our powers range from collaboration to to review of AML CFT, to direct prompt monitoring and even stop of financial transactions once we are able to identify that there is likelihood of money laundering or terrorism financing. The law also requests that mandate gives us the power to request and collect any information that we deem necessary to enable us to fulfill our functions. We also sign MOUs with agencies. Then the reporting entities. By law, by the AML Money Laundering Prohibition Act, all these reporting entities are supposed to be reporting to the NFIU, the commercial banks, that is the money deposit banks, development finance banks, merchant banks, PMIs, BDCs, MFBs, microfinance banks, non-interest banks, discount houses, finance companies, capital market operators, insurance companies, and even money value transfer services. All these individuals are supposed to be reporting, entities are supposed to be reporting to Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit. As well, we also have designated non-financial institutions, where we have the audit firms, car dealers, casinos, chartered accountants, jewel dealers, supermarkets, hoteliers, luxury goods, and so on and so forth. Then we collect different types of reports. The currency transaction report, that, as I said earlier, in the legal framework, we also have foreign currency transaction 10,000 or if equivalent, suspicious transaction report. These are why the banks need to automate their process, because any transaction that is suspicious must be reported immediately as soon as it happens in the banking system. We also have suspicious activity report. These are actions that has not translated to a transaction. For instance, a customer wants to do a transaction, the teller asks the customer for an identification, means of identification, the customer declined the transaction. Such action, such activity supposed to be reported to the FIU for the purpose as a suspicious activity. We also collect cross-border transactions and other transactions. Now, to collect this report, we have provided two platforms, the GoML, which was developed in FIU in 2007, but is now being used by over 80 financial intelligence units of the world who are actually using this tool. Then, for all the reporting entities that may not have a report, something to report, to fulfill the requirement of the law, they are also expected to register with our new platform. Anytime they don't have a report, they will go to that platform and submit new report that within this period, within this week, there is no transaction that has met the reporting threshold within our system. This is to fulfill the requirement of the law. Now, let us now go to the general issues of AML CFT issues in Nigeria. These are scenarios we all know. Corruption as a result of money laundering and other predicate occurrences has left most of our people into abject poverty. Violent crimes, armed robbery, kidnapping, and banditry has been as a result of arms proliferation and financing of armed proliferation. The country has now been bedeviled by a very challenging situation. Now in 2019 specifically, the country was rated, the country was assessed by the global pace setters, the FAT, Financial Action Task Force, and the regional body, GIABA. And the performance of the country was extremely very low in terms of AML CFT. As we speak, Nigeria is under the ICRG, a monitoring group. Before, if we succeed to pass this monitoring, then we will be removed, or we may now be placed on the grey list. By placing us in grey list means that all our international transactions will now be put under scrutiny. Investors will now be given alerts to be careful of the country. So in this rating, Nigeria scores 7 in only, it is only in 7 that we are fully compliant. Then 14, we are largely compliant. On 17, we are partially compliant, and for 2, we are even non-compliant completely. In terms of effectiveness, out of the 9 immediate outcomes, Nigeria only scored 2 moderate level, and the rest 9 out of the 11, 9 is low level effectiveness, which is a very poor outing for the country. Specifically IO4, this is where the financial institutions are playing a very significant role, and we score low effectiveness. And also in terms of preventive measure in money laundering and terms of preventive measures in financing of terrorism financing. So this is not a good outing for the country. Countries like in the region, even like Ghana, get a better rating than Nigeria. In terms of our size, in terms of our resources, we have all it takes to be able to do better than this. Now, microfinance, let's now go drill down to the microfinance. CBN regulations state that every microfinance bank shall comply with the Money Laundering Prohibition Act, Terrorism Prevention Act, all the CBN regulations, specifically 2013, we also have 2019, and all relevant AML CFT regulation and circulars. All microfinance banks are required to develop and implement appropriate policies, processes, and procedures to mitigate the risk of money laundering and financing of terrorism, including the designation of non-compliance officers and who shall be below this. Now, all licensed or registered MFBs operating in the country are expected to register on NFIU GoML portal and the new reporting portal to enable them respectively render statutory returns and nil return if there is no report for a particular period. But here we are. Out of the total number of the current list of registered microfinance banks, only 120 are currently registered on GoML platform, which is 14%. This is still not encouraging at all. On our NIL portal, most have even tried to register on the NIL reporting portal. But what they need to know is that you must register on the GoML, which is the actual reporting portal, as well as re-registering in the NIL report portal. Because you don't just register just because that you will never have any transaction to report. Because by registering on NIL reporting portal means that you have just said that I'm not registering on GoML portal. It means that you are not ready, you are just not even preparing to report at all. Now, why I will also give a little kudos to the National Association of Microfinance Banks. Last year, after our webinar, they organized a sensitization workshop for the members of the microfinance banks. Now we have been able to see a significant increase. Before the workshop, we have 20 microfinance banks that were registered on the GoML portal. After the workshop, we have 100, additional 100 we are able to register. Though it is not the level we expected, but it is an encouraging move. This is to to assure us that if the association will also continue to sensitize and put more effort, more people will now register. And also in terms of report submission, before the workshop, we only have 6 reports from the microfinance banks. But after the workshop, we were able to record 291 reports from those ones that have registered, which is an encouraging output. So this is good. We hope they will keep on so that we have a larger number of them. All of them are supposed to be in doing that. Why we want to let you know is that this week, if some of the members of those microfinance bank are on the call, they know that we have reached out to them for them to give us the transaction, because we receive a request for information from our counterpart in USA, FinCEN, that they needed information, and the information turns out to be a transaction that occurred in one of the microfinance banks. Now, if we are to start applying sanctions, definitely that microfinance bank is supposed to be sanctioned, because we are expecting that they should also report. Why should it be that somebody in the US will be the one that is telling us somebody, our own citizen within our own financial system, is doing a suspicious transaction? So this is why it is very important for the microfinance banks to get on board and continuously report. Reporting does not mean that, it means that you are safeguarding your system, because the penalties that will come is not better. It's not something that is encouraging. And that's what we want to say here. Importance of customer identification, transaction monitoring, and reporting to microfinance banks. Automation of customer identification, that is, you know a customer, which allows financial institutions to leverage on artificial intelligence, machine learning technologies to ensure that customers meet the regulatory standard without a high dependency on internal resources. If you automate KYC, automate customer verification, everything will be aligned automatically. Transaction monitoring is also very vital part of preventing money laundering and terrorism financing, allowing the financial institutions to monitor the transaction made by their customers in real time and on a daily basis. It gives the financial institution opportunity to comply with the changing regulations, dictation of financial crime, and avoiding the risk and financial sanctions. You should know that according to Money Laundering Prohibition Act, when a body corporate, meaning a financial institution, is convicted or liable for an offense under the Act, there is tendency that such entity will be closed down, will be wound up, and all its assets and properties forfeited for the federal government. And if it is individual, either you are a compliance officer, or you are a money laundering reporting officer, or you are a supervisor in the chain, and you commit offense that is related to non-reporting or non-identification of a customer, then you are liable to conviction. If you are liable to conviction, to imprisonment for a term of not less than 2 years, or a fine of 500,000 for any infraction. This is why it is very clear that the microfinance banks need to wake up. Remittance services and of microfinance banks remain vulnerable to exploitation by terrorists and fintech operators, which are considered to be potential conduits for terror funds and money laundering. From the record available at NFIU, which I just displayed, the MFBs are not doing well with respect to compliance with the anti-money laundering and counter-financing or terrorism guidelines. Therefore, we are employing the association to do a lot with the members to comply with the anti-money laundering, and which include registering, make sure that they register with all the NFIU portals and start rendering return. Any week they did not have a return, they should go to the new reporting portal and file. Compliance will be in the best interest of the operators, associations, and country financial system. Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit is poised to collaborate with the operators directly or through the association in providing the needed training, technical support for all operators to ensure they are effectively complying in terms of registration, in terms of sending returns. So thank you very much for your time.
That was a really excellent presentation, very detailed, and I'm sure that our audience in the MFB sector will find that very useful. I'll move on very swiftly to our second speaker, Mr. Rook.
Again, colleagues, good afternoon. One of the first things we would like to drop have issues of knowledge gap when it comes to AML CFT. One of the issues we have discovered among practitioners is the lack of knowledge around the regulations as it concerns anti-money laundering. It's surprising to say that some banks do not even have an AML CFT policy. And so it's surprising how you want to tackle issues around AML CFT. Mr. J has done a lot of summarizing the details of the sections of the Act as it concerns your roles and responsibilities. So I won't dwell on that anymore. So we look at again, it's knowledge-based, the issues of understanding, detecting, applying surveillance to note that in your pool of funds, you have STRs, you have CTRs, you have suspicious transactions. I'll give you an example. Somebody comes to the bank and wants to take a loan of 10 million, 20 million, and has given you a repayment period of, say, 1 year, and decides to pay back same facility within 1 month. All right, for me, that's suspicious enough. Where the fund come from within 1 month? What's the KYC surrounding the customer? How much of KYC have we done? How much of advancing the KYC? Many of our banks have done KYC probably at account opening phase, and after that account opening phase, KYC has ceased. So we have not done advanced KYC. We have not reviewed the KYC documents as it concerns the customer you have dealt with. That will affect you dealing with AML CFT issues. And having said that, a lot of this, when I was listening to Alhaji G, he was talking about applying surveillance to your accounts. Earlier today, we had somebody from the NFIU talk to us at the FCT NAMB meeting about issues of money launderings being perpetrated through microfinance banks. And this is a concern to us at the association. So we now need to begin to automate, as it were, issues around AML CFT to really help us identify these transactions, help us detect, and make our reporting easier. I can tell you from my interaction with some of the compliance officers, having to check every day, piece by piece transactions to now identify and then try to report is a lot worrisome for them, especially with the other assignments they have to do with limited resources in the bank. So it's becoming clear that we need to improve our reporting using technology. And I'm sure the next speaker will talk more around the issues of technology. He's the expert. He can help us drill down the ABC of how this really will work. There's been a lot of interaction with the NFIU trying to be sure that whatever is being given to us is meets the requirement for the nation, meets the requirements for our reporting standard. Finally, some MFBs have already been selected to commence with the pilot tests. So after this webinar, we would reach out to those MFBs that are already on our list. I'm sure they also know themselves. So I've seen some of them on the call. We'll reach out to you and we'll commence the pilot soon, so that at our next discussion, would have in clear terms what have been done, what the experiences are, how this has helped us, to improve our AML CFT issues. The truth is, as long as the MFB sector becomes a weak link, we'll continue to get a lot of bashing from the regulators. I will say frankly with you, I was not happy with the tone that our MDs were spoken to today, but this was given rise to by the fact that many MFBs just come into the system and want to do untoward things, forgetting that there's a back end, to what money does around. Money moves in front and money also moves at the back. So it's important that as MFBs on this call, we live here today making up our minds that whatever it takes to do proper reporting. Just for 1 minute, I'll say this. Many of us actually post new reports because we feel we don't have, for instance, currency transactions. But there are MFBs that collect up to 20 million, 50 million to pay salaries of either local government workers, pay contractors and all of those, and they still post in their report that they have new report. Meanwhile, your commercial bank has already reported that XYZ amount came into your bank. So it means you are not giving correct reports. So with technology, this can be made a lot easier, and then reporting is made seamless, and in no time we can clear our sector of all the bad reputations that we have. Thank you for listening. I hope that will make the microfinance bank sector working again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Eddie, for that presentation. So we've been working, as Eddie said, ladies and gentlemen, with the NAMB, with the NFIU, and with Dixtior, the company that we're going to hear from next. And Ruby Tente is the CEO of Dixtior and the founder. Been very involved, working in many parts of Africa, working with African banks of all sizes, with introducing and developing technology solutions around financial crime, AML, CFT that work for the region that we're in. There's no point taking a technology solution that works perfectly in Spain or Portugal and trying to apply that into our sector in sub-Saharan Africa. It has to make sense for what we do. And I'm very pleased to introduce Rui. Rui, thank you very much for your patience. I know that we are long overdue on your start time.
It's always a pleasure, Sally. It's always a pleasure.
That's great. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll hand over to Rui, who will talk about DCS technology and about the use of technology and RegTech more generally in dealing with this question of AML, CFT, PF reporting. Rui, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Salis. Thank you. First of all, Mr. Mohammad Jia, it was a pleasure to hear you again. It's always so nice to see how you can put us all back to the basics and try to understand what are the main problems that we all face, being financial institutions, being RegTechs, whatever, but to understand the really concerns, the really menaces that we all have up front. And seeing your presentation is always a pleasure. Said that, let me tell you that we already have the integration with the FIU reporting with GoAML completely done, and I hope to show you next week that's working. Okay, so that's
interesting. That's lovely to hear. Thank you.
That's the most important thing for you to hear today.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you so much. Well, let me start before going directly to the technology. Mr. Mohammad showed you showed the problems with these reports and the evaluations that countries have. We from Dixtior, we have the pleasure to tell you that we start working, for example, with a country in Africa that is that were in a very worse situation, that is Nigeria, that was Angola. And when we started to work with Angola, they were on the grey lists, where Nigeria doesn't want to finish. And now, on nowadays, we represent 40% of the major banks in Angola. And over the last 8 years that we work with them, they moved out of that position. They are now not grey listed. They are of course a lot to improve, but we feel that we have made part of this growth, of this capability to communicate to the Angolan NFIU, and all of this makes part, meaning that NFIU is here to help the microfinance banks in Nigeria. You don't have to look at the NFIU as another boring report that has to be presented. No, you are helping yourself and you are helping the system. And if the system works, everybody will, at the end of the day, earn more money, but good money. Okay, so saying that, I will jump to the presentation. I will share my screen. I will try to give you a brief overview of our solution, and tell you that the main purpose of our solution is to help microfinance banks, all financial institutions, to have better control and immersive control over everything that's happening in the bank. Today it's more easy to present our solution because all of the situations that were arised by the intervenients before me. You have the questions of KYC. You doing KYC on the moment that you open the account is one thing, but then you have to redo it over and over again. And for that, it's what we call diligence. Our system helps you to do a strong, ongoing diligence over your clients. It helps you to understand the risk of each of your clients or accounts at every time, at every moment of the time. In our system, all the transactions are scrutinized in real time. But behind that, we even go further than just looking at them in real time, and we look at patterns, at the way that these transactions may or not are connected to other transactions that already happened before. You will see that in our system you can understand a group of transactions that occurred in a period of time that may be a placement, like it was explained. The question of moving money around and around from one bank or from one account to the other account. So it's quite important that the system allows you to have a full understanding of what's going on your bank, on your organization, but also on the accounts of your clients. So let me give you, as I said, a brief presentation of the platform. I will show you the main features. It will be not even 2% of what everything that the system does, but I believe that it can help you to understand how technology and how DCS can help you. How DCS can help you to have a better performance and to make to be more compliant. Okay, so this is the main dashboard. I will not lose a lot of time here. Basically, this is the type of alerts that we can generate, and alerts are always depending on new customers changing behavior, and transactions that are occurring on the moment. So we have KYT, knowing your transaction, KYC alerts, diligence. This is recurring, revisiting the clients. And we have also something here that I believe that it's not very important for microfinance banking. If I'm wrong, please tell me, and I will talk about it. That is corresponding banking services. Mr. Mohamed Jia told that money moves from one bank to another bank, from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction, and to do that, corresponding banking are essential to do these this movement of the money. And what we are seeing today, the big change from the past to today, is that on some years ago, only big banks would have corresponding banking services. Today, to avoid this control, they are trying to invite other banks to do these corresponding banking services, meaning that they try to find out ways, try to move money through banks that doesn't have a lot of systems in place. And you may be one of the sectors that can be attractive for these guys that want to move money from one place to the other, what is called dirt money, from one place to the other, without your knowledge, okay? As you can see, we have online origin, meaning real-time transaction monitoring, real-time monitoring on clients, and of course the batch process. I will jump. Before I'm going to the alerts, I want to show you the benefits of having a solution like DCS. One of the problems that people find when they are dealing with the question of money laundering, financial crime, is the question of silos. You have information everywhere, and having information everywhere means that you don't have access to nothing. Because if you want to see the history of the customer, you go to a system. If you want to see transactions, you go to another system. If you want to see documents related to the client, you will go to another system, or even you have it in paper. And that's the big problem. You don't have access to all information that can give you a clear idea of what is your client doing with you. So our system, what allows you, is a place where the people from compliance or money laundering reporting officers can work on and do the full work here. Okay, I will start by showing you. I opened a few windows, as you can see, just to save us time. Okay, I will first show you how you can see, for example, the information about an entity. It's important to have these two big references in mind. You have entities and you have accounts. One account can be owned by several entities, right? But one entity is one entity, and it can be present in several accounts. So what's important is for you to understand the full information about your entity. Don't look at the names. This is all fake information, only for purposes of demo. So don't be upset if you see, for example, Ghana here or another thing. So this is just fake information, okay? So we are seeing, for example, one person. We see all the information regarding to this person. We have access on it on our system. We don't have to go to the core banking or to the CRM. We can have all the information just in one place. I see that it's an authorized person, it's an embarkation master. I can see the profession, if it's a PEP or not. I can see what documents they brought to opening an account, the birth certificate, whatever, address, all the information. I have it all around here. More than that, during my time with these clients, I can collect information. I can create inquiries. Create inquiries means that, for example, I need to request this customer to send me an update on his ID card or passport or proof of address or something like that. I can just create an inquiry, send an email to the client, request him to send information, and all the information will be stored on our system. I have a clear view of everything that happens. I know that in this case, he opened an account in 2020. Until now, nothing happened in terms of AML events. And I can see what relations this person has with other persons that are our clients. Okay, so this shows us the connections that can happen between people that have accounts on our bank, but they didn't clearly explain us the relationship they have between them. Okay, we understand that they open an account with another person, then they open an account with a third person, but it's all these connections is important for us to know. Of course, this is just an example, and this is a never-ending story because it's built to be that way. As you can see, if I go here, I have 23 more relationships. But if I want to see, okay, but who is Victor Fara? I can just click on Victor Fara and try to see, okay, this guy has a high risk of AML. It's a guy coming from the United States, from Michigan. I have all this information just in one click. Once again, giving you the overview of everything that you have on the system. I like to call to our approach to this as having or giving the banks the capability to have a client-centric view. Okay, they can understand everything that their clients are doing in the bank. Okay, I didn't explain what is this part here, these green and risks that we are seeing. So there are several risks that can be applied to a customer or to an account. So meaning that I have an acceptance risk. What is this acceptance risk? It's the first time that somebody goes and knocks on our door and says, okay, I want to work with you, I want to be your client, I want to have an account in your bank. So we don't know this person from nowhere, and we have to evaluate them with the information that we have. And for doing that, we built a scoring module that have in consideration a lot of things, like, for example, the nationality, where the person lives, what is their main profession, what are the purpose of opening an account with you, what are the products that he wants to use in this bank, and all these will contribute to a first risk, what we call acceptance risk. Okay, of course, the compliance officer or the MLRO always have the chance to change and to put a manual risk, but you will also do a screening against the list to see if it's a PEP or not a PEP, or sanctions on top of it, or adverse media or whatever. We'll see it just in a moment. Okay, another thing that I want to call you that we are looking at this Avani, this person, and we see that he has several accounts. I can easily click on each account and see details of each account just by clicking on one account. I can see all the information. I can see the behavioral risk of this account. I can see what type of account it is, who are the owners of this account. I can look for all the movements that were made on this account. I will not lose too much time here. I want to go to another place. In this case, we are looking at a person, but we can also look to a company. Same information. The difference is that now we have beneficial owners. We have to identify much more persons in this company. Okay, but the information still remains the same, with the same look and feel. So, but now you can see that it's a private company coming from Norway. It's placed on the stock market in London, on London Stock Exchange. The social capital that the organization has, and once again, all the information that was collected, all the events, and all the relations that this account has. But let's imagine that for some reason you want to do something on this account. You say, okay, this is an account that I don't want to give access, for example, to currency exchange or to a credit card. I can come here and on the button that I clicked and manage logs. I hope that you are seeing my screen. When I say current blocks, I can add blocks and say, okay, I can stop this account to be associated. I can block this account. I can put a permanent block. This depends on your core banking system, but I can make real decisions that affect my client just in our system. I don't have to jump from one place to the other. Okay, now let's go. We're looking at entities. Now let's see what we can understand from one account. Okay, first big difference, in one entity I don't have behavioral risk, but in one account I have behavioral risk. What is behavioral risk? Behavioral risk is after the client starts using the bank to receive his salary, to pay the school for the kids, to buy a car, to ask for a credit, to pay with a credit holidays with a credit card. All this information that is the movement, the transactions that you use the bank for, are analyzed, and we start to understand how this client behaviors. We know his patterns, we know usually how much money he receives, we know to where he sends money, if he sends money across borders. All of this information will help us to build what we call a behavioral risk. This behavioral risk is based on clusters of clients with similar behavior, and we start looking at Is this client changing his pattern of behavior? Is it keeping the same? It's getting more riskier, less riskier, and we can launch you alerts saying exactly that. Okay, so this is means that you are going to have a KYC, a know your customer, in a spectrum that I believe today you never thought it was possible. I can fully understand my client. Okay, so once again the same thing. I have all the information about this account. I can see that now it has a diligence, a normal diligence, neutral screening, meaning that all these owners of the account, the two persons that move the account, doesn't have any problems with PEPs or sanctions or things like that. I can see all other accounts that these entities have. All the information is here. Once again, information collected. I can see all the information that was collected, but I can see movements. I can really understand what this account has been doing over the period of time. In this case, I will look at 360 days, and I see that in this account, 150 transactions happened. 56 of them were in credit and 102 in debit. I can see in detail when they were moving, what was being done, which currency was used, what was the operation codes, counterpart banks used it, counterpart countries, all of that just accessible in just one click. I can even come to all these transactions that this client did in the period of 1 year, and I can say, okay, tell me please which of them generated an alert. And clicking here on the button with alert, I see that this guy generated several alerts. I can now go and see in terms of euros in this period of time and try to understand a little bit better what was the amounts that he transferred or received. Okay, so once again, I can have all the information in just one click. I don't need to change from one system to the other. I can see all the AML events. I saw that I have a lot of alerts here, so this is a long story. Okay, but since the account has opened, I have the full history of my client. When he opened the account, what happened, an alert was generated. If I want to see, okay, but what was this alert was about? I just click here and I will open the alert. And I will see, okay, this was a rule generated to a high risk of the account, meaning that this account changed its risk, so we have to check it. That's okay, it was some time ago. Let's go back from where I was. Okay, AML events, and from that on I can see everything that was happening on this account. So in terms of audit, in terms of the central bank or your external auditors going to audit your system, everything that you have done, it's here. It's quite clear for everybody what happened. We can see this in this beautiful way, or we can see it in more tabular way, just by a click. We can see all the codes, the alerts, and everything. Okay. Now, most important, also behavioral data. Behavioral data is what I told you, that it's used for know your customer, but it's also used for transaction analysis in real time. Let me remember you. Meaning that every time that a guy makes a transaction, depending on all the thresholds and rules that you have built on your system, we are also looking at the transaction and trying to see, does it make sense to this client to do this transaction? Meaning that you are going behind all that is the usual standards of anti-money laundering monetization. You are not just looking at the country, you are not just looking at the amounts, you are looking at the behavior of your client, to the history of your client, and try to understand if this makes sense. Let me make you a simple question. How many times do you buy a car? Do you buy a new car 3 times a year if you are a single person? Well, if you are wealthy enough, you might buy 3 cars in 1 year. But do you buy 3 cars every single year? If this makes sense, it makes sense that you are spending holidays in Switzerland at the same time in South Africa. These kinds of operations, we can talk about 100 euros, $100. But the question is, try to understand. It's it's a low movement. It doesn't make a lot of, it won't go to trigger any alerts. But the question is, does it make sense? Why is this guy doing this transaction? So this is what we try to check and give you the capability to understand. More than that, we don't only look at the account of itself, but also to the cluster where it belongs. Okay, so this is the lines that we have here. As you can see, we have a matrix of 14 by 14 different variables. We are just showing 2 variables here. And what I'm telling you is that when we look just to the account, meaning that if the client makes movements inside of these parameters here, it will not generate an alert. But if it goes up of these parameters or lower of these parameters, it can generate an alert. And then we enter with the cluster. As you can see, this client, for example, has a movement a little bit above the cluster, but on the lower part, it goes not so lower as the cluster. So what you try to understand if what's happening more. What can you see on these strange metrics that you have here? And this is a correlation between variables. And on this case, we are looking at offshore debits and high relation debit sums. So once again, don't look at the variables. They may not make a lot of sense here, but we built this module according to the information that you have. And what we try to show you is, for example, if we have deposits correlated with withdrawals, and this is one of the examples. For example, offshore debits with offshore credits. Okay, the relationship between one and another, or we can see offshore debits, for example, with here it's another exchange with debits. So once again, the main idea is that you can understand what's happened to your account. Why is this guy receiving money? Somebody was making questions about remittances. What we try to say here is every time that I receive a remittance, what will going to happen next? Okay, I'm trying to find patterns. Okay, I receive money from a remittance, and then I'm sending money to a familiar of my own somewhere in the country. So that's the relationships that we are to try to understand. And this will give you a capability to know your customers and your accounts in a way that could prevent you and say every time that you have a suspicious to deliver that report to the NFIU and say, okay, I have a real suspicion that something can go on here. If you have any questions, don't mind. Please do it. Now I'm going to show you an alert. Okay, and in this case, it's just a question of changing in the risk. As you can see, this is behavioral risk. And remember what I told you all about the patterns that it can change. I'm saying that all his average movements are changing, and that this client is moving his risk from one level to another. Okay, so once again, you have all the information here. To treat the alert is quite simple. You just, in this case, I can do this, but this depends on the users. I can, I change the assignment to me. I will go and to take care of these alerts. It's already in treatment. I will change the team and team user. I'm not here. Okay, so this is not a good example. Let me see if I'm here somewhere. No, I'm not. So I will not take this one. I will show you another alert. A different alert is, for example, when the name of a person goes against an external list. Okay, in this case we have this name. This is our client, Almeida Rodrigues. And we are saying that it was a hit here against Dow Jones data. It can be Dow Jones because we have an integration with them. It can be any other list provider. And I can go directly to Dow Jones and to see what is the information that I have about this person. Okay? I can see all the information here in just one click once again. I don't have to jump from one system to the other to see all the information that Dow Jones has about this person. In this case, is telling me that he's a politically exposed person and with additional domestic screen requirements. He's a citizen of Brazil, and he stopped being a PEP in 2020. So regarding this information, I can now make my decision. And to make decisions, I can come here and just say, okay, this is the same person, this is different persons, and just make a decision. Showing you different alerts now for a transaction. And in this case, you are looking at cumulative cash withdrawals exceeding 10,000 euros in 20 days. Okay. The threshold that I defined, it was that I will look weekly to these accounts. I will look to a period of 20 days, and I have to have at least 2 transactions, and the minimum amount accumulated is 10,000. So what happens? And I see that I have here 45 records of small transactions that were made and cashier's checks that were withdrawn on this period of time. Once again, don't ask me if this rule makes sense or not. It's just a question of an example, okay? And I'm seeing what were the movements that were made in the last 20 days. Let me see if I can change this assignment here.
I think Rui, as I was going to say, one of the key things that we were certainly able to get from that is a really clear understanding of how the DCS system allows the institution to be able to understand its client's behavior. And I guess that links in very well with what Mr. Mohamed Jia has been saying around what transactions should be reported and suspicious transactions. The DCS platform seems to be able to make that really easy for the bank to be able to set its parameters and identify those transactions. Would you agree, Rui, with that as a suggestion?
Yes, Saudis. And let me tell you that, for example, Mr. Mohamed Jia talked about, for example, the reporting that needs to be done regarding some cash transactions according to some amounts, if I believe. I believe that they probably have to be reported daily, right, Mr. Mohamed?
Okay. Yes, you are right.
So our system, what it does is it generates these reports automatically, okay? So it's something that on the beginning of the day, all the cash transactions and the sums and the relations of these cash transactions, according to the limits imposed by the laws, will be sent automatically to the NFIU. So that all these type of reports that are automated reports, like this monetization of currencies, foreign money, all these can be automated. What cannot be automated is the process of investigation. Okay, the process of investigation has to be performed by the team of the bank, and after that investigation, what is automatized and can be automatized is the process of communicating the SAR or the STR to the FIU that goes to the XML directly to the GoAML in FIU.
Okay, great. And that's, ladies and gentlemen, is what Eddie was referring to when he talked about the pilot program that brings together the DCS platform, all the knowledge and intelligence from the NFIU and the members of the NAMB. So as time goes by, I'm sure the Eddie and the team will be talking to you, his audience, on that. Ladies and gentlemen, we are significantly over our original thinking in terms of time. I think it's been absolutely worth the extra time because we've been able to get some really strong insights into a really important matter that is a regulatory issue after all, and therefore has an impact on our ability and our license to be able to continue to trade. So as Mr. Shakir Caleb said right at the very beginning, the NAMB sector in Nigeria is going through a lot of change, a lot of challenges, around recapitalization and so on. And as a seasoned risk professional, one thing I can tell you is that when investors look at an institution that they want to participate in from an investor perspective, they look at the way in which that organization manages risk, including particularly how it reacts when it comes and responds when it comes to regulatory risk.
I guess we can go on to the next question here. It is from I don't know how to pronounce it. It's Ulusei. So it says, good day, please, what is the contact details for NFIU for registering on the GoAML?
Okay, thank you very much. I have decided to look at the chat box while we was making this presentation to pull out some of the questions that may be related to NFIU. On the contact details, I will share my presentation slide. Two things you found there. You will also see what you need to do, how to register on GoML, and also the contact details. There is a compliance number and compliance email address. This email, compliance@nfiu.gov.ng, which I will share with my slide so that everybody who has the slide will be able to look at that. And the telephone number is also an office line. During the working hours, you can also call in to get that, get any support. There are a few questions some people ask, which are the four common foreign destinations of the illicit fund. Yes, we have seen a lot of flows to United States, Europe, and Asian countries. Then there's another question again that somebody say he observed that the payment service providers are not among the list of reporting entities on GoML portal. Yes, that is what we said, the MVTS. The circular from the CBN has categorized the PSPs, and we are working with the OFI department to make sure that we get all the people in the ecosystem on board. That is, last week we have a meeting with the central bank, other financial institutions department, who are the regulators, to be able to get them on board. Another question which I found very important again is, can foreign entities register on GoML for SAR? Yes, any entity that is operating in Nigeria, foreign or local, irrespective of where the country is, where the entity is registered, so long as it's operating within the jurisdiction of Nigeria, is supposed to register on GoML and start rendering suspicious transactions, suspicious activities as much as possible. Now, somebody also asks, how do we go about registering? Yes, that will be on my slide. In a situation whereby they change compliance officers, all you need to do is just to get back to the FIU that you have changed compliance officers. So those are the few questions I think. So again, somebody asks again that if there is possibility of doing a practical process. This is what we did in the last sensitization program with the NAMB, that is the National Association of Microfinance Banks, and with the operators. But for those who are not opportune to be there, NFIU is willing anytime to provide, to send resource persons to your locations to train you on how to make use of GoML. It's as simple as using Instagram or Facebook. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed Jia. I think that's the first time I've ever heard GoML described as being as simple as Facebook or Instagram. But the day that it becomes as simple as that, I'm sure we are all going to be reporting. Whether you ask us or not, we'll go and report. But I don't know if there are any other questions. Mr. Jia has done a great job tackling the NFIU direct related questions. Are there questions that relate directed towards Rui as well? Anything?
Most questions are GoML and related, so I think Mr. Jia covered most of them. I think there was another question here from Elias. Which are the most common foreign destinations of illicit funds from Nigeria? I guess that one can go to anyone.
That's to Mr. Jia as well. Mr. Jia, any thoughts on what are the key routes?
What I say that it is not ideal for me to list countries by countries, but we have seen significant of inflows to the US, Europe, and Asian countries. Those are the key areas we have seen, and some into the countries that are tax havens. We have seen a lot. We have a comprehensive illicit financial flows report on that, which I will not mention the specifics here now. Thank you.
Of course, we wouldn't expect you to mention country by country. That's fair enough. That's only fair. Iona, do you have any other questions?
No, there's no other questions. They are all Go AML related and CRT. So I think it's all covered. I think there's a few questions where they're asking for the presentation. So
Sure.
we will do so. We have the email addresses and we'll send the presentation to the attendees. Yep. I think that's it.
Okay,
I don't think there's any other questions.
Okay, great.
Okay,
Well,
I was not going to ask this to Rui. What's the interface between the application and the core banking? How do you integrate?
Rui, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Can you asked me how the integration between?
Yeah, how do you integrate? Yes, DC with the core banking.
It has to be seen case by case. Okay, we have a middleware for those integrations. Okay, but it might happen that some developments has to be done specifically for each bank. But our integration middleware, what goes is to seek all the information about clients, entities, accounts, movements, everything. Okay, so it's a web service based. All this is placed on yours look, the implementation is on your systems. Okay, it's on premises implementation for questions of security. The integration is just a web service that connects to the core system or CRM or whatever other systems that you have. It's not complicated. It's not complicated.
It's not complicated. I think that's the main point. It's not easy, but it's not complicated. That's
yes,
great.
It's not easy, but it's not complicated.
Okay,
just to say this, I see a lot of issues about operational questions on the NFIU. So if you have any issues around the NFIU registering on GoML, all of those, please let us know. Send us a mail. We have had issues of officers of the NFIU not responding to mails on time. If you let us know, we can escalate and discuss with them. They are friends. They are willing to make this process as easy as possible. But we must also know that they have many other assignments to carry out. So just let us know by mail, and we'll follow up and ensure that you get resolution, please.
Fantastic. Okay, great. Okay, so I think it's time for us to wrap up. I think one of the key messages that I would like to be able to distill out of what we've got here is a comprehensive understanding of the regulatory obligation that MFBs and payment service providers and the others have in relation to transaction reporting and in relation to suspicious activity reporting. And obviously, you cannot really report this other than the threshold reporting, which is neither here nor there. You cannot do the reporting that's required without understanding your financial crime or your AML landscape and your risk profile, which comes from monitoring your transactions. The DCS platform is tailored specifically to be able to answer those challenges. Behavioral risk, the use of artificial intelligence allows you to very rapidly automate and understand the way in which your client's transaction activity and behavior is configured, and allows you to automate your reporting much more quickly. I'd urge you guys to reach out to us at ARMC and Dixtior to arrange a one-on-one demo with your organization if you want to understand the system a little bit better.
Yeah, I just saw a question on MFBs not reporting on GoML. Can they start reporting from January? I think that you cannot be too late on reporting. You can continue to report and report and report. The danger of not reporting is when you are caught, is that you pay fines for years of not reporting. So go ahead and start reporting. There's no need to ask the question of where to comment.
I was literally about to say a big, massive thank you to our speakers, Mr. Mohammed Jia, obviously Mr. Shakir Caleb in the beginning, our opening speaker, Mr. Mohammed Jia, Mr. Eddie O'Rourke, and Mr. Rui Vicente. Thank you very much indeed for your time and the commitment that you've given us. Above all, thank you very much to our audience. You've been here for a long time on this really important issue. Shows your commitment to getting this right in the MFB sector in Nigeria. And of course, to all the backroom guys at ARMC and all the people who've worked on getting this webinar together. A very massive thank you. We have a series of webinars that we're running with the NAMB and with Dixtior about financial crime and with the NFIU. So I'm sure that if you look out on social media, on LinkedIn and with the NAMB social media platforms, you will find out more opportunities that we're putting out there to share more information and knowledge about risk-related matters, not just on AML, but on capital recapitalization and on credit risk and many other issues. Of course, as ARMC, we support organizations with helping them build their risk frameworks, supporting them with compliance reviews and the likes and many other things. So we're here to support you. Please reach out and we look forward to engaging with you going forwards. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today. See you soon.
Thank you all.